Well, a very significant update with the confirmation that one of the two men who was arrested last night has now been released. That is a 35-year-old man from London. According to Cambridgeshire Police and the British Transport Police, who put out this statement this evening, they say that the 35-year-old man is no longer a suspect, was not involved in this attack. Instead, a 32-year-old man, the man also arrested at the scene last night, remains in custody. He did, according to the police, board that train at Peterborough Station. It was just 10 minutes later, if that, that this attack unfolded. And also some dramatic news as well about the actions of one of the members of staff on board this LNER service, the 1825 service from Doncaster down to London King's Cross. According to the police, they said that his actions undoubtedly saved lives. We have been told in a statement from the police, from the superintendent, British Transport Police. He said, this is Police Deputy Chief, in fact, he's British Transport Police Deputy Chief Constable Stuart Cundy. He said, our investigation is moving at pace and we're confident we're not looking for anyone else in connection to the incident. As would be expected, specialist detectives are looking into the background of the suspect we have in custody and the events that led up to the attack. This was a horrific attack that has had a wide impact. My thoughts and those of everyone in British Transport Police are with those injured and their families, especially the brave member of rail staff whose family are being supported by specialist officers. Now, that statement goes on to say, having viewed the CCTV from the train, the actions of the member of rail staff were nothing short of heroic and undoubtedly saved many lives. My thanks to the public for their patience while we continue our investigation at Huntingdon Station. We hope that we will be able to support GTR in reopening the station soon. He goes on to say anyone with any information is asked to contact the police on various helpline numbers. So that, I think, is a very significant update from the police here, and really, I think, casts fresh doubt on all that we've heard so far about this in terms of there being two attackers, in terms of course, the police. Interesting in that statement, they didn't say anything about not treating as a terrorist attack, but said they are still looking now into the background of this individual. Just one person, a 32-year-old black British national, born in the UK, who is now being held in custody, having been arrested, and according to the police, he boarded that LNER service from Doncaster to King's Cross at Peterborough Station. It was I think less than 10 minutes later that this attack unfolded. So, as I say, one suspect, one attacker, that 35-year-old man of Caribbean descent, also a British national, released without charge, and very pointedly the police making sure that people know he had nothing to do with the attack. One suspect only in custody would appear to be, as far as the police are concerned, their prime suspect.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. And just to recap on that breaking news, a 32-year-old man from Peterborough remains in police custody on suspicion of attempted murder. That is after the knife attack on a train. But the 35-year-old man has been released with no further action. That is from British Transport Police. Police, they said, and a heroic member of LNER rail staff who tried to stop a knife attacker on the train in Cambridgeshire and undoubtedly saved many people's lives, remains in a life-threatening condition. That is from British Transport Police. Well, I'm joined now by Andy Trotter, who's a former Deputy Chief Constable with British Transport Police. So there you have it. So it's one attacker, one assailant, the other one has been set free. This is a good example of actually how releasing that information at the right time is very, very important indeed.
Yes, I mean, it's good to hear that statement come out now, and quite, obviously in the confusion as people were coming off the train, as the Cambridgeshire police were dealing with a knife-wielding suspect, these things happen. But it's good to hear that information come out from BTP, and that information about that heroic member of staff. I mean, it apparently could well have saved many lives, and what an amazing person that must be to have done such a thing in such probably terrifying circumstances. So I imagine we'd all want to commend them for their outstanding bravery in saving lives.
But how horrendous is it that it is down to people, maybe this person worked in the canteen, or maybe they did, but they're not a member of any sort of transport police, as it were. How can we make the rail network safer for people travelling on it?
Well, clearly there are 5 million individual rail journeys every day across the country, thousands of railway stations, journeys on trains. It will not be police officers on every train. That's 3,000 British Transport Police officers stretched across England, Wales and Scotland. Not going to happen. But I certainly think this is a case for a really in-depth review of security, not just around this case, but around all the conversations that people are having at home today about incidents that happen on trains or buses or at railway stations where they feel frightened, where they feel trapped, and where they would like to see greater security, be that British Transport Police or be that security provided by the rail companies themselves. I think this event, as far as the police and the ambulance response, was exemplary, and tremendous work by the rail company, by the driver and everyone involved in bringing this to a safe conclusion very, very quickly in terrifying circumstances. But I think it should open up the questions about general security, not just around these sorts of attacks, but about everyday matters. I think that is on people's minds a great deal at the moment.
Now, earlier I spoke to Festus Akinbasoye. He was a former police and crime commissioner, and he suggested knife arches. Would that work? And if not, how would you go about making the network safer, Andy?
Well, you only got to think for a moment about how many entrances there are being London-centric for a moment to Oxford Circus Tube or Waterloo. How many knife arches would you need to cope with the thousands of people streaming through our rail and tube stations? And, airline security would mean you're queuing for miles outside the door. I mean, people quote Spain at us. I mean, their rail infrastructure is tiny compared to ours. Targeted use of rail arches, which is currently done by British Transport Police and colleagues, does help. I think this is about people as much as it is technology. We've got to look at new technology, but I think this is as much around people having more security staff, more British Transport Police on the network, visibly on the network. And as we all know, all the public sector is under huge pressure at the moment, and it's not getting any better right now. So I think this is an opportunity for an in-depth look at security generally across the transport system.
Because there are stations that are completely unmanned. There are turnstiles where you go through and you can just go through because there's not anybody there to check. A lot of them are actually open after a certain time. Huntington, which is probably one of those where you probably go through, I don't know whether they've even got barriers in that station, but that's scary if you're a woman alone coming back from work or something like that, especially as it gets close to winter. There's usually not much in the way of security in these places at all.
No, these places are deserted, often late. The barriers are open, which encourages itself people not to travel with tickets. It encourages all sorts of antisocial behaviour. And I think this is a real challenge for us. I mean, none of us want to pay more for our tickets or pay more income tax. But I think this is a fundamental condition of a decent life, that we feel safe on public transport. And I don't think people currently do. So I think this is an opportunity for a really good look at what we want from our transport system, what we want from our police, and what we want from the rail companies to help us feel safe and make our children and all of our families feel safe late at night when they're travelling on the system.
Briefly and finally, how common are these sort of attacks? We don't hear much of them in the news, but maybe that's because there's not a fatality or there's not a real incident of a mass event. But how common are these? Because I often see videos and things like that on X and all of that, on TikTok and stuff, of people doing bad things in trains. So how common are these kind of attacks?
Well, I mean, the attacks like today, thank goodness, are not that common. But we do know of antisocial behaviour all of the time. The evidence from the rail union today about the number of attacks on rail staff and the abuse that they take, the abuse that everybody seems to take in public these days, be they GPs, surgery receptionists, or people working in shops. There is something happening at the moment about the way that people are interfacing with the public, are being treated, how they feel, their safety, their dignity. You know, we need to have a really good look at this. And all the time we erode policing, all the time we erode criminal justice system with cases being delayed for years. We know our prisons are full. We know that our courts are really struggling. We know the CPS are struggling. There's a whole range of things here, but we can't put this off. Now, I think there's something we could do right now, which is investment in real life, human beings, to be out there on the system, helping everyone feel safe. And I don't think that's technically difficult.
Well, after all, it was real people who helped each other and made this a less horrific incident. Andy Trotter, thank you very much. He's a former Deputy Chief Constable with the British Transport Police.